All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Wednesday live stream. This week, I want to look at the test generator. I think the test generator is like it was a pretty cool shift. Tests generator. I always do that. This is a pretty cool shift that historically, as I'm talking about it in the back of my mind, I'm already thinking how relevant, I don't know, how relevant is this still? So for the few that are joining live, you can let me know what you think in the chat as I'm kind of talking about this. But the goal of the test generator, when I made confident Laravel. If I can type, when I made the course confidentlaravel.com, this was probably in the 5.8 days, 5.7, 5.8. Testing was gaining more traction in the Laravel community. The testing layer was better. Adam Wathan had that TDD, course. That was kind of the de facto course, I think, that he kind of initially made. So I kind of built this around all of that, around the course, around his course, around my course. And, I even spoke at LaraCon about tests. So testing kind of became this subtopic, I think, that I tried to kind of own. And as such, of course, I built a shift around it, kind of like I did with the fast Laravel course. It also has a shift around it. Because there are some there's some automation that you can do, in this case, to start generating tests for your application. If you have no tests for your application, which I think is pretty common, unfortunately, despite testing in these courses all being prevalent kind of in the Laravel community, people still aren't writing tests. I think that's changing in fairness with AI, which kind of jumping ahead brings me to my ultimate point. AI can generate tests for you. So that's kind of as with shift in general, it's kind of where does this shift still fit, right? I want to give it some love to make sure that it kind of still has a place. And again, to generate tests, if you have even just a medium-sized application, to generate tests for your entire application with AI you would definitely get rate limited, even on a bigger plan, I would think. There's just the tokens it would take to do it are nuts, I would think. So again, for $30, if this thing made all the stubs and then gave you prompts to hit specific areas to kind of target AI to go and, okay, hey, wherever shift, again, having them work hand in hand. That's really what I'm trying to do lately with AI is integrate it, have this good handshake where shift gives AI a lot of contextual information and a set of kind of reliable changes, and then you can kind of let AI run on the rest, that last mile of automation. Same thing here. So kind of sticking with that quote unquote last mile approach. I think this still has a place in that regard. So I've kind of answered my own question, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, in the back of my mind. I want to give this some love because there's a lot more assertions, there's more fakes, there's more things that can be done now inside of tests that are generated. Also, too, this is probably one of the most involved shifts as far as its runtime, because it actually needs to install and composer install and actually set up your project, so to speak, right? It needs to potentially make a database depending on to be able to analyze your application accordingly. It kind of has to be able to run it, at least in the sense of being able to run some artisan commands like route list and so forth. And a lot of people don't realize, but route list hits all your controllers, which effectively boots your application. And if you're doing things kind of maybe in the wrong spot, if you're having database calls and controller constructors or database calls inside of service provider boot methods or something, it can be difficult to run your application in kind of in a separate environment, in a new environment. Might take a little hand holding, right? Little setup, a little more setup than people realize. So the point here is that some of that is still a little bit brittle, so I want to focus on that. But I think for today, we'll keep the stream kind of short as I develop kind of this punch list of things I want to change. So this is definitely going to be a part one of others. I can't guarantee I'll do these sequentially, but this will definitely be a part one of a couple parts, I think. So let's get into some code. All right. So we've got everything checked out. Let's do PHP's Artisan Storm. And let's get a feel for the test generator for those that aren't familiar with kind of how I've build shifts by, you know, an article or looking at previous streams or whatever, watching previous streams. Let's kind of take a look at how it works. The test generator specifically is like, it's kind of, it follows the general architecture of a shift, but it's a little bit different in the sense that it does pass some things along because it needs to, again, set up that environment and kind of analyze the application. So let me let my iMac prepare for takeoff here. Let's get into the tests generator. There it is. Okay, so everything starts with this shift class, and you can think of this shift class I've talked about before, but it's kind of like this registry, right? You could, in Laravel terms, like you could kind of call it a model, but it's really just kind of it's a very simple like DTO kind of class, right? It's just a very simple registry, kind of a dumb object, plain old PHP object. There you go. I think I'm churning here, so hopefully my stream catches up, my iMac catches up. There we go. Okay, so anyway, the point is it basically just has like these super simple accessor methods. Does it require composer? You know, what kind of type of shift is it? What's the PR name? Where are some of its assets located? What's the latest version? That should honestly probably be null, but we'll leave it alone now. It does some amending to the pull request, so if they're using pest, it changes how they should run it. And then here's the beef of every shift is basically it returns the tasks. And this is, you can think of this kind of like a collection pipeline. It's using arrays, but the point is it's basically a pipeline. It just runs all of these in order and kind of just goes to the next, goes to the next, goes to the next. And for the most part, these line up pretty well with these atomic commits that you see here. So like shift core files, include testing helper package. Like if we go back and look at the tasks, we'll see, you know, add test package, factories, core files. We'll see things that kind of line up. So for the most part, each one of these tasks in isolation pretty much lines up with one of the commits you see on the shift. But some of them compound upon one another. So they, uh-oh, I think my mouse battery just died. Can we do it all from the keyboard? Probably not. So anyway, let's take a peek at these. While, that's gonna be a problem. If I were like a Power Vim user, here, let's do this. All right, had to get my old lightning cable for my Magic Mouse. Okay, let's leave that plugged in for like 5 minutes and see if it gives me enough power to plug it back in while we're looking at some other things here. So I'm sure I can navigate into some of these classes, but I'm trying to think of which ones make the most sense. Determine framework, determine major version. Okay. Composer install, so we talked about this. This actually installs the application. It determines the testing framework, so it's going to figure out if you're running PHP, or if you're running pest, basically. If you're running pest, then it's going to make sure to generate you pest tests. That's probably one of the biggest areas that needs to get cleaned up. So to that point, let's just start making kind of like a to-do here. So to-do, so some of the big things here would be like, let's see, higher output pest test for latest version. So that's like, you know, V4, right? It's probably, honestly, it's probably like still doing like V2 or something. Not that that much has changed, but I think there's an opportunity to do that. Similarly, we should ensure that PHP unit output uses latest conventions. So this is like attributes, class definitions, etc. Yes. Okay, cool. The next thing I really want to do is, and that might be what we do today, is add AI prompts for automating additional test completion. And we can look at that here in just a second. Kind of a sub thing of this too is like generate factories for models based on I think there's like a model show. Let's, again, while we're waiting on things to charge and I know I can use my keyboard, let's go back to something. I'm trying to think of a project. Let's just go back to that like confident Laravel. And let's do PHP artisan model show video. I think it's either model show or model about. Model show, great. Okay, so, and I'm pretty sure this was originally made by Jess Archer, who used to work with me on Shift, and she threw in the wonderful --JSON bit here. So the point here is that this actually gives us, we can see in here things like fillable, hidden, its type is integer if it's nullable. So we get the information that we see up top here as well. So just going back to this, the point here is that this model show gives us information, probably enough information, and even some stuff about the belongs to and related relationships to better generate a factory. So I think that's what I'm saying here. Right now, I think I have some custom code, again, because all this, when this was written, it was probably Laravel 6. The model show command did not exist in Laravel 6. So I kind of made my own version of that. I think that uses reflection, but I think it would be much, much better to use model show. That would be cool. And again, since we're installing the application and we're running commands like route list, we should be able to run things like model show. Everything else I think is pretty straightforward. We tear down miscellaneous and we upsell the course, upsell CI generator. We probably don't need to upsell the course anymore. That's pretty, I wouldn't go so far as to say the course is irrelevant, but outdated, I think is fair to say. I would want to update it if I was actually going to upsell it. So I think first things first is, yeah, let's chunk that out real quick. And then I think the easiest thing to do right now, let's see where it generates stuff. Can I get into this? How do I get into this? Is there like a control click? Go to the method. Go to it. How do you go to it without command clicking? Well, we'll just do this. There we go. Controller test. Okay, let's see what this does. Because this is the beef. Generating the HTTP test for controllers is the beef. So what's happening? At this point, it's already run route list. All right, I'm pretty sure it's run route list. No, it's going to run route list right here. Okay, so it runs route list. It gets that JSON output. It sorts it based on action name. So controllers and stuff are kind of in order and effectively iterates through each one of those. Oh, I'm hearing the chat, but I'm not going to be able to open the chat. We'll get the mouse back in a minute. Let it charge. Sorry, chat. You're going to have to wait. That's funny. Okay, where were we? We are here. Okay, so let's go through this. Yeah, hopefully you're seeing me and hearing me okay, because I can't open the chat. All right, let's see here. So we collect all of these. We figure out some stuff. I want to get to where we're actually generating. Okay, so we have test stubs. Okay, so if they're using pest, we pull a pest stub. We could go look at that. If they're pulling test, we could pull the test case stub. So my guess is this test case stub. Okay, there you go. See? First things first, we could go ahead and change this to test. All right, there we go. Already in the right place. Let's check out test stub as well. Stub. So we need to make sure to I'm fine with the C dummy reference. That's good. We do need to bring in PHP units version of the attribute. So let's go to that control. Let's go to one of my own tests. Tests. There we go. PHP unit. Let's borrow this. Close that. These are in alphabetical order. There we go. So IPT. Okay, cool. So that brings in the attribute that we just added for the step. So there we go. That's already off the list. Good, nice and easy. I'll look at pest later. Again, I don't think too much has changed in the test pest stub. Yeah, again, it's just a PHP unit file. Whoops. Test. Oh my goodness, test case. Pest stub. Test. Okay, yeah, the only argument here would be like changing that to it. Maybe it has kind of won out. I don't know. Again, let me know what you think in the chat once I can open it. That would be my only thing so far in what we're looking at. That would be my only thing that I would probably change for like a V4 is I do. Let's go see what the docs do. Let's let the docs decide. Why are you so slow? I'm gonna have to get rid of this iMac. Oh, iMac or Chrome. Maybe it's Chrome. What's wrong with you, Chrome? I'm beach balling. I'm deep beach balling in Chrome. It won't even come up now. I was trying to see what the docs. PHP pest documentation. All right. What is going on here? Oh, wow. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Without a mouse, I'm not going to hit tab 1,000 times to get to the right place. Okay. I'm going to leave it. I think when I do write pest, I do use it. I'm going to leave it. Okay. I think what I would want, this would need to be driven out by test cases. I remember this file's probably one of the larger shift tasks that there is. Yeah, look at that. There's a lot of comments still floating around in here. Most of it's generating like assertions. Somewhere in here, yeah, the request calls, the factory calls. I think the setup in here is pretty good. I wish I had like, again, I haven't run these in so long for my own applications because I already ran them and generated them years ago. I wish I had like a recent run of this, but the point is that what this thing's goal is not necessarily to analyze every line of code and nail it. That's where AI is going to come into play. What it should do, though, is generate you an HTTP test for every controller action that you have registered in a route. And it's going to do it with a bit of intelligence. It's going to see like if it's behind the auth, middleware. If so, as you can see here, it's going to add in this like acting as. There's all sorts of things that it does. So it's, when you have a test, you have like arrange, act, and assert. And it's going to give you all three of those, but the assertions are probably going to be where you want to beef things up that are custom to your code. But this test generator should pretty much nail the setup and nail the request for kind of your happy path call. And if it knows you're doing things like cruddy actions and so forth, right? If you have like a resourceful controller, like I think if we look in here, there's probably some mapping that says like, if we're calling a create endpoint, then go ahead and add some of these like simple assertions that, probably should be in place, right? So again, there's just a lot of stuff in here. I mean, this is like a 600 line file. Yeah. Again, very tiny helper methods, but like there's a lot in here. And we're going to need to like beef that up with a test. A lot better with a test. That's the other thing. The test for this, I think, is probably really, really difficult. Something else in here that I want to be aware of. Yes, scripts. Fixer, controller, actions. Do I have other scripts? No, that's the only one. Is there like reflection in here? No. Where's my finder? Functions finder, abort. Okay. Do we have any other finders? Yeah, return finder. Okay, cool. And then is there like any facade stuff in here? No. Is there any mail? So that's something that could probably, so like a job queue. So that's something else I think I could do in the setup. I could probably do, I think that's kind of another evolution of this test, is to probably analyze the code a little bit more and try to give you a bit more. Again, I think it's pretty good at figuring out like implicit model binding and some things like that based on the routes, or if it's an auth endpoint and setting that up. If it's a post, what type of request? Is it a post request, whatever? It's pretty good at setting those things up. And when it, even if it were a little bit off, it would be kind of like a repetitive off that's super simple to, I think, change. Again, especially kind of AI, that last mile. Oh, like I was using name, but it's not really like a person's name. It's, you know, it's a company name or something, right? It might miss a context like that, which again would be easily searched and replaced, or have AI fix it kind of across the board. I would like to see it do a little bit more with facades though. That would be cool to like guide you to, you know, if we see that you have like mail send, or you have a mail to, or if you have like some job name dispatch, like I think it would be cool to fake those out. So that's kind of something else that could be done. So we could go up here. So the class, oh yeah, sorry, there's one more thing about the test stub. Yeah, test stub. This, in modern PHP unit, that's actually a final, because you don't extend your own test cases. I'm not a huge like final. I don't really add a lot of the you know, modern qualifiers, I guess you could call them, to like classes or properties. Like I don't use read-only and stuff that often. I think they're cool. Like I think they're cool additions to the language. I just kind of haven't personally adopted them. But again, sticking with what is convention, I think PHP unit uses final there. So that is one more thing. So class definitions and attributes, I think we nailed that. We can take that away now. I do want to check this. So it's like it versus yeah, it versus test function. I'll figure that out. And then I think, so let's go back here. Let's add more analysis for controller action to see if facade common, let's say common facades are used. It's not going to nail everything, but you know, I think if it at the least looked for things like mail or queue, or maybe even HTTP, I think that would be good. So I think this could get done once I have my mouse back, and then this probably isn't so bad, but will require testing. And then once I know, I need to kind of review the current test cases to get a better feel of like what output is currently being generated, and that's going to allow me to kind of get into this. But I think the real win is this controller test. I need to really immerse myself in this task and make sure, kind of remind myself where like some of these edge cases are. I could also take a look at Laravel shift blueprint. Yeah, I could also take a look at blueprint. Oh my God. This is why we didn't do that. Where are we gonna land? I don't even know. Okay. Tests. generated tests. There we go. I could also look at Blueprint, and it does generate HTTP tests for the controllers that it creates. So I think I could also look at this project to see, like, it kind of knows the statements that are in the, so it knows a lot more about the code that it's generating, so therefore it can generate like line by line tests of them. But it might give me a feel for like how they are. But going back to the AI prompts, what I would want as far as these AI prompts is any edge case that I know is missing, add a prompt for. So for example, like if we did find a facade, add a prompt that says, okay, you can have it go in and any of these like little areas. And then we saw too that like in the controller tests, I did leave like some to-do comments in the output. So I think an AI prompt that guided it to those specific comment stubs and tell it what to do. Like, hey, anywhere where there are generated tests in this PR, like, and you see this, check the actual controller action to see what might need to be filled in here, right? To fill in these like comments. So I think having some of that would be pretty cool. And then, again, this thing kind of generates the happy path. So I think a generic prompt that then said, hey, per controller, like go in and review any additional paths, and check like these like negative paths or sad paths, whatever you want to call them. I think that would be pretty cool. So let me get my mouse and see if we have enough power or enough charge to get into the chat and see what people were saying. Hopefully my mic has not been off this whole time. So let me go grab that. All right, come back on for a minute, mouse. That's hilarious. I had that little like recharge batteries soon thing. There we go, look at that. All right, we have enough juice. Let's go bring up the chat. Okay, cool. Hey, JMac, hey, what is configuration.md? What is configuration.md? Where did, sorry, yeah, I'm catching up on the chat. Where did you see configuration.md? I think it just calls test under the hood. Yeah, it and test are interchangeable to that point. Let's go back and figure out our answer here. I don't know why Chrome is so slow. Okay, where editor setup writing tests. Let's see what they do in their documentation. Okay, they have test. They have it. So as an alternative to the test function, test provides the convenient it function that simply prefixes the test description with the word it, making your tests more readable. In this case, the output will include the description it performs some in the task array. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll go back and look at that. It's probably a comment, but yeah, I'll go back and look at that. Thanks for clarifying. What do I want to do here? I'm trying to think of a really good project in the wild that would use Pest and see what they use. Like, I'm curious what does Nuno himself use, right? What's one of his, like, let's see, Nuno, Maduro, POA, yeah. I think he's got this. Is this on GitHub? Yeah. Does he have any tests for this? I know this is like one of his recent packages. He may not have tests for this thing since it's just like this little plugin. Oh, he does. Okay, cool. Let's see. Laravel style test. So he uses it. Yeah, Pinkery's another one. I don't know if is the Pinkery open source? I don't know if Pinkery is open source. So he's using it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm leaning towards it. So output, so I think what we would want to do here then is I'm going to go with it, but so what I would want to do is for pest, drop any, it prefix from test case names. Yeah. So I think we'd want to do that. So I can probably finish that up here in a minute. Let's go back to, okay, yeah. Okay, so you were asking about this. So earlier I was saying that most of these tests are atomic or isolated. So for example, they internally have their own commit inside of it. If they do, it'll get called. If it returns, non-null, it gets called, it makes a commit. But I also have generic commit tasks. That way, if there's like a couple things that happen here, for example, test configuration, configure pest, and tear down the environment, are all part of the configuration commit. So if you go look at these themselves, they won't necessarily, or well, I guess this one. Well, one of these won't. These now have their own. I don't know let's see what this is. That's what it's supposed to do. Configure basic testing environment. My guess is this never gets hit anymore. It's ran, but it doesn't actually make a commit because there's no changes. That's my guess. But that's what that would do. I think historically, like these 3 or 4 tasks maybe didn't have their own commit, but now they do. Maybe that changed. I'd have to go look at the history to see if this is even needed anymore. It doesn't feel like it, but that's what it was for, so that's what it is. This is just a commit message in Markdown to make for the commit. So yeah, I think instead of relearning these test cases, what I'm going to do is probably take a look. I think outside of the stream, I'm going to go to this controller test, which I think probably uses the old, yeah, it uses some old mock. Ugh. It uses like low-level mocking instead of our new testing layer, which is gonna make it, it's gonna make it much, much harder to work with. So I think before next stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refactor that to use the new testing harness for Shift, which we've seen, I've demonstrated that in some other live streams, and kind of figure out where the boundaries are to better kind of flesh out, like, what is this actually, like, what are the actual, specific things I'm trying to do? Because the test generator mostly focuses on generating HTTP tests. And I think that's where most of the bang for your buck is. Like that's the gateway into your application is, it's a web application or an API, sending requests into it. That's how you test Laravel apps, right? HTTP tests. So beefing this up and modernizing it, which we've already done for PHP unit, it's kind of the low hanging fruit. And then adding to it so it gives you a more complete test and more specific hooks for AI to prompt AI to drop in and say, okay, anywhere you see a test that has this, little to-do comment, fill it in, right? And that's effectively what we're doing. And that'll take it the last mile. So your tests will run, but they need a little more beef. And then once they have that, you can have a generic prompt that Shift gives you that's like, okay, hey, all happy paths should be tested for these specific things that are like really critical, critical endpoints, put in some negative paths, right? Test that, like, if I pass it crappy data or if I try to do it as not an administrative user, things like that, I think, are where AI could kind of fill in the blanks. And you could guide it, because you don't need negative paths for everything, in my opinion. So I think it's a good start. But I need to update this, because this is the biggest one, I think, once we have that. So again, this is part 1 of probably like 3 or 4 parts. I may not do them week after week after week, but I think what my goal is today is this is deploy worthy. So bump PHP unit and pest versions. So let's just start. I'm going to finish this, I think, and I'm going to go ahead and deploy it, because it's, again, this is all incremental. And then I think I'll let AI try to refactor this test to be the new, kind of the new integrated testing layer. It might be a little bit difficult because of this scripts. That's probably why I did it that way, because I actually run underlying commands, but I might be able to fake that out somehow. Or I might have to wrap that in something else. I don't know. I'll figure it out. That's why this one's hard to test and a little bit gnarly. Let me get past that off stream. We'll pick up next week where we add the AI prompts and stuff. So, all right, everybody, thanks for joining live for the good old JMac streams where anything that can go wrong will. I'll see y'all next week.